Being able to confidently swap to Namor when needed can be a game changer, especially when facing aggressive flankers. He's perfect for shutting down those pesky enemies trying to disrupt your backline. Whether it's a slippery Spider-Man, a tickle monster Black Panther, a hit-and-run Star-Lord, or any other flank-heavy characters like Iron Fist, Psylocke, the list goes on, Namor is your go-to counter. Let's start by breaking down his kit. Namor is a ranged duelist, and his kit consists of his primary attack, Trident of Neptune, his secondary attack, Wrath of the Seven Seas, his E ability, Aquatic Dominion, or as I like to call them, the Squids, his shift ability, Blessing of the Deep, and his ultimate, Horn of Proteus. Proteus? I don't know how to pronounce that. He also has a team-up ability with Luna Snow called Frozen Spawn, and this is where the real magic happens. We'll dive into that later. His primary fire launches projectile tridents that have 0 damage fall off, meaning you can, and in some situations should, just be spamming them down choke points. I'll touch up on that in a bit. His trident does 70 damage to the body and 140 to the head with a projectile speed of 120 meters per second. It does travel at an arc, so to hit those long-range headshots, you'd have to aim a bit higher so that it can land on target. Namor has infinite ammo for his primary attack, meaning you don't have to reload at all. Well, you can even if you wanted to. If it's convenient, you can even bind your reload button to one of his special attacks. To balance his infinite ammo, Namor's cooldown between his trident throws is a little over 1 second, 1.09 to be exact. Next, his E ability, the Squids. Activating it will have Namor spawn them by throwing them at a slow arced trajectory. These are basically turrets that when spawned will lock onto the nearest target and begin attacking them. Unlike his primary fire, these do have a damage fall off beginning at 20 meters and increasing to 30% at 40 meters. You get 2 charges and you're able to place both at the same time. You can only have 2 active squids at a time though. Placing a third one with 2 already active will despawn the first one. Each default hit does 17 damage and they have a fire rate of 2 shots per second, meaning 34 damage per second. Now, if you have both down at the same time, that jumps to 68 damage per second. The squids last 8 seconds before automatically despawning, but something I haven't seen anyone touch upon is this special effect on his primary fire. Every time you hit an enemy with your trident, it actually reduces the cooldown by a bit. And this is why it's useful to spam your trident down chokes at enemies, because hitting them back to back will reduce the cooldown way quicker than if you just waited for it. Each squid also has 100 health, and in certain scenarios you can actually use them as cover since you can attack through them, but opponents will have to take them down first. While we're on this topic, I want to bring up his team up ability with Luna Snow. Having her on your team will allow you to use Frozen Spawn, which is just like his E ability. It gives you an extra squid, a frozen squid. It has a cooldown of 20 seconds, but it's a stronger and better version of the regular squids. It has double health and its lifespan is 10 seconds. Also, when it hits an enemy, it slows them down by 25% and it has the same attack speed of 2 shots per second, so as long as it's hitting your enemy, they'll be slowed the entire time. It just wears off 1 second after not being hit. If you're going against those heavy flankers, it's crucial to save this for when they flank. Not only will it allow you to slow them, but it even does more damage at 25 damage per shot. Although you can still only have 2 squids placed at the same time, even if it's a regular one in a frozen spawn. Regardless, this boosts his cooldown management efficiency so much, but I'll touch more on that later. Moving on to his secondary attack. It moves just like his primary fire and it does 60 splash damage in an area of 3 meters. But when you hit an enemy with it, it'll cause the squids to focus that enemy and shoot at them in a berserk state. This speeds up their attacks to 5 shots per second at 11 damage a shot, meaning 55 damage a second. And if you have 2 squids down, that's 110 damage per second. It only lasts 2 seconds, but that's 220 damage in 2 seconds on top of the initial 60 damage from the secondary attack. And if one of them is the frozen squid, it does 80 damage per second. You can see how this would quickly wipe out a flanker or a support you're trying to focus. Now onto one of the strongest self-defense abilities. His shift will launch you upwards and put you in the shield bubble, and you're literally invincible for the 3 seconds it lasts. If you use this ability correctly, it lets you defy death even at the worst moments. If you hear any ultimate that's coming to wipe you, as long as you hit this at the right time, you'll get a chance to relocate and reset if needed. Your healers can still heal you through it, but no incoming damage can get to you. The only tricky part is the 15-second cooldown, which we'll get into soon. Finally, his ultimate. I'm not even sure what he really does. He kind of just throws a giant fish at this radius, but anyways, let's get into the details. His ultimate has an energy cost of 3100, which is on the lower side, and it's really easy to get hits and charge up your ultimate considering you have 2 sentry turrets you can toss anywhere on the map. When you throw it, any enemies in that radius all get their mobility specials disabled, and it takes 1.5 seconds for the fish to actually fall and do the damage. Now, what most people don't know about the damage is it's split up throughout the area. The outer circle only does 200 damage while the center does 500 damage. That means if you get any enemy that's not a tank stuck in the middle, it'll wipe them instantly. So if you're pairing it with Groot's ultimate, for example, you want to make sure you have all the enemies inside that center circle. Now that you understand his abilities, let's talk about how to actually use them to dominate fights. After setting your squids up, you essentially want to get a quick kill on the enemy's backline, or at least get them low enough, forcing them to pop valuable abilities, leaving them vulnerable for the rest of the fight. If you're fighting super close range, you'll want to melee in between each trident throw to get the extra damage in during that 1-second cooldown for your primary fire. There are some combos that can help you eliminate lower health characters even quicker. Headshot, melee, secondary fire is the fastest way to kill any 250 health character. As Namor, it's the only attack pattern that ends with no animation cooldown, so you can execute it quickly. In game, it's important to know that if you hit that first headshot on a nearby enemy, that you can quickly melee and use your secondary attack to instantly eliminate them if they are under 250 health. But if you're trying the combo and hit a body shot instead of a headshot, you can still execute the rest of the combo, which will leave them super low. Having a squid deployed or any useful teammates will help this be more effective. If your secondary attack is on a cooldown and you're close range, you can use headshot melee, body shot melee, which will also instantly wipe out any 250 health character. And yes, obviously if you can hit that headshot twice, it would do more damage, but it's easier to aim for the body shot on these smaller characters, and it's enough damage to quickly kill them if they have 250 health. With all these attacks, you'll mainly want to focus the enemy support. The combos work best on eliminating the 250 health supports shown at the top, opposed to the rest of the healers at the bottom who have more health. Now onto one of the most important aspects for all characters, cooldown management. You'll want to always keep mental note of which abilities you have and which ones are on cooldown so you can position yourself accordingly. If an enemy flanker forces you to shift, it's now on a 15-second cooldown and you want to play safer and farther back until it gets lower enough for you to confidently push in, having it ready when needed. Neglecting this will only keep you running out of the spawn room all game. This is important for all characters, but especially Namor, since every time you die, your squids die with you, making you completely useless for the time spent regrouping and allowing enemy flankers to push in on your healers. Every time Namor dies, the enemy usually gets a free push. When it comes to the squids, ideally you always want to have 2 out of 2 squids deployed. What you don't want to do is toss both right into the battlefield at the start of any fight, allowing any enemy hit scans to take them down instantly and leaving you squidless. Position them in a way where they are blocked from enemy hit scans but still have line of sights on whatever choke or objective you're playing. It's important they also have coverage for your backline, and what I like to do is toss them a little higher, that way it can shoot over most cover if any enemy flankers come around. Usually, I'd say don't randomly spam attacks into the enemies from afar if you know you're not securing a kill because you'd only be charging the enemy's support ults. With Namor, it's a different story and you should be constantly chucking that trident into the enemies. Like I said earlier, hitting an enemy slightly reduces that squid cooldown, and if you can land some shots back to back, you'll be able to recycle through your squids way quicker. With the Luna Snow team up ability, this gets even better. Throwing a third, stronger squid into his kit is honestly so valuable for Namor, which is why I always choose him if you have a Luna on your team. Not only does it maximize the cooldown efficiency, but it can even help boost your playstyle. Now, you can be a little more comfortable using those first regular 2 squids offensively or even setting them up as a flank. If it works, you'll be able to secure a pick, shifting the fight in your team's favor, and if it doesn't, then you're still disrupting the enemy's target choice, whether you make them turn around or even just look up to shoot the squids. If they push in or try to flank after that, you still have your frozen spawn available, which is stronger at shutting down pushes anyways due to its slowing abilities, higher health, and higher damage. Obviously, in the meantime, you should be trying to get hits with your trident to reduce the cooldown and cycle back through your squids, which is the key point here, always having them provide value to you and your team. Also, with the trident doing 140 critical damage, once you get used to its projectile movement, you should always aim at head level when spamming it down choice because one hit could be all it takes to finish off a damaged support. Pairing that with your secondary attack and even the squids can help you clean up the backline faster than you think. Moving on to his playstyle, we already covered his versatility, but you can be effective playing defensively in your backline or even flanking to the enemy's backline to secure some picks. You honestly just have to see how your team is positioned and play accordingly. If you see they are getting pushed back and flanked, then obviously play back with them and shut down the flankers. If they are pushing into the enemies and you can see your healers are in range, it might be a good idea to flank. You should always try to set up on height with Namor, positioning yourself above the enemies and even your squids at heights they won't naturally be looking at. I think he's best played defensively that way as a setup character similar to Loki and Penny. Get your squids in ideal spots, get height advantage, and just melt through the enemies with your trident. Some important things to take note of. If you throw your squids onto a breakable structure, if that structure is broken, the squid dies immediately. This makes it much easier for the enemies to knock out your squids, and if that's happening, you can hit B on PC to see all breakable structures and avoid placing them there. In certain situations, it might be beneficial to use the squids to body block for you since they'll take any incoming damage and you can still attack through them. Placing them like this next to a wall or a doorway is the best way I found it to work, and if you can, throw the frozen spawn higher to cover your head since it has 200 health opposed to the regular squid's 100 health. Another quick tip, every time you use the shield bubble, use those 3 seconds to check the indicator at the bottom left to see how many squids you have deployed. And if it's not 2, then find a good spot up there and set them up. Coming out of the bubble, you should immediately get a hit with your secondary fire to get the squids attacking your target in berserk mode as you come down. Also, if you're playing against Moon Knight, keep in mind his primary fire will bounce off your squids and hit you and enemy teammates nearby. To counter this, simply place them away from your team and avoid placing them next to each other since his attack will still bounce from one squid to the other, taking them down faster. Ideally, you want to place them across from each other so he can't even see both at the same time. You can also do this little trick to throw your squids farther and higher, setting them up exactly where you want. All you need to do when walking forward is simply jump and flick upwards and you'll gain some distance with the projectile. As you can see, it goes much farther than if you just looked straight. Another thing I wanted to touch upon is his Lord icon. I think Namor has one of the better ones in this game because some of these are just crazy. And if you look at the challenges required, they are really easy and you'll fly through them just by playing him regularly. So if you're someone who cares about mastering the characters to Lord, Namor is a really easy and good pick for that. If you made it this far, I really appreciate you watching. I put a lot of time and effort into this video to help you guys out. If you did enjoy and found any value, please hit the subscribe button because I'll be putting out more content daily. Thanks for tuning in.